Hi everyone. So today is going to be a little bit more of a different video. Today I'm actually going to teach you some in-kit effects. Today I'm actually going to be doing a third-degree burn. So this burn will be charred, it will be dark, it'll be bloody, it'll be very texturized, it'll be kind of like in that kind of wettish look just because of how irritated it's become, things like that. So today what we'll be using is a lot more different products than I usually use. Today we're actually going to be using Skin Illustrator FX. I have at least 3 of the palettes here with me today. And we'll also be using Real Creations ink. This is our student palette color reel, so this is also really, really beneficial to our burn today. I'll also be using A and B. This is third degree, which is exactly what we're creating today. This is going to create our texture. I'll also be using Real Dirt because usually the dark one that I have in my kit for alcohol-based makeup isn't always dark enough, so we'll be using some spray dirt. We'll also be using a little bit of blood. This is called Fresh Scab from Jordane Cosmetics. And we'll be using a bunch of blending sponges. So without further ado, we're going to start. So the first thing that you're going to do is make sure that you've cleaned off your skin with 99% alcohol. Now this can be on either part of your skin, doesn't matter, as long as it's not going to get into someone's eye. So because what we're going to be using today is alcohol-based makeup, it's very important that you do not have these in your eyes. So don't ever use alcohol-based makeup on parts of the eyes. So now that we have kind of cleaned off the skin and made it look beautiful and spotless, we're going to begin. I'm actually going to begin with using our Skin Illustrator palette and use the lightest pink that I have. This will kind of create the irritation around the skin. So I'm going to make sure that I will rip my blending sponge in half and kind of not give it all those areas of where it can look fake. So you kind of want to rip off all of the straight edges. Just make sure you have a garbage near you. I should have done that. So now that we don't have any edges around here, I'm just going to rip off these ones as well. We can go in. So the first thing that you're going to do, lots of people, they can do them anyway, but I do this in a specific way. So I'll first be using my alcohol. This is 99% alcohol, and I'm just going to spray it into my palette. And when I've sprayed it into the palette, then I just kind of go in, rub it, and then there's my color. So you need to work with this quickly because it does dry. So I'm just going to put it very randomly all over my arm. Doesn't matter exactly where. The best thing about special effects is that it must be very, very random placement in order for it to look real. So I've kind of given it that really broken up kind of irritated look. And we're just gonna go in again with it. And make sure that it's like everywhere. You know, when you see a burn, it's not in one specific place, right? So just be sure that it's all in random places, even some maybe on the hand. And then because it does look a little bit splotchy, we're going to go back in with our alcohol. Just spray your little sponge and just kind of break up those areas. Beautiful. So now that we've kind of broken up all of those areas, I'm going to go back in with another color. This is the color right beside my lightest color. I'm going to go in with that color next. And we're also going to do random placement. So make sure that it's kind of, you know, in places that, you know, wherever. Just really, really, really random placement. You need to be sure that it's extremely random. And then be sure to break it up. This is called breaking up your burn. This is when you kind of take it and just wipe it a little bit. Make sure that the color, it doesn't all look the same because it's a burn. Perfect. So now that we've only gotten like these types of colors, you can already see it kind of coming together. This almost kind of looks like a 1st degree or 2nd degree burn, which is really great. So if you ever needed to build on top of it, you can always build on top of it as long as you don't have any type of product on top that can ruin it. So the next thing I'm going to do is go into this color, just kind of more of a kind of pinky but reddish kind of color. And we're going to go in again. This time it's a little darker, a bit more visible, but that's what we want. Make it really, really visible, really great. I'm actually going to use a little bit more of this, because now we are darkening it. So make sure that most of the darkness is going to go kind of, you know, in the middle-ish area, or wherever the burn has kind of started and irritated the most. And then we're going to break it up again. So break up those colors. It's also good to have a bunch of different blending sponges. I just kind of like to use my own because it kind of still has all the other colors in it. So now that we've kind of gotten that dark color in, now you can see that it's really starting to come together as a burn. I'm actually just going to break it up a little bit more, just on the sides here, because obviously I won't be really making it too realistic, but if it were to be anywhere on the arm, make sure that you also get the hand area, you get on this part, if it of course has been on this part of the hand as well. So now we're just going to go into our more darker colors. So this is going to be these two. So I'm going to spray these and then just be sure to, I'm going to mix these two. I really like mixing these ones. And this one's going to be darker. So here we go. We're going to get even more darker here. Remember again, the placement is very, very, very random. Just always be sure of that your placement must be extremely random. Lots of makeup artists have an issue with making it very random because if you are in beauty makeup, it's not often that you'll have to do something that isn't similar to each side, very symmetrical, right? So you need to make this very asymmetrical. So now that I've kind of broken this one up quite a bit, I'm actually just going to go in again and wipe a little bit because I see it's kind of given it a bit of a unusual effect here. There we go. Perfect. So now that I've kind of gotten all this area finished, we're going to go back in and I'm going to use a red. So this is where I'm just going to be grabbing my red. This is a really like full actual red, you know what I mean? It's like the perfect red. So we're going to take a lot of this red and this is going to be where the irritation is going to come back in. So because it's a very nice red, we're going to take it and we're going to put it kind of around where you want the areas to look more irritated, more burned, kind of like you just fell right into a fire, right? It's almost like the fire, you just kind of brought it with you. So that's kind of what this red is. It's like your skin is still boiling. So as you see, I've really gotten crazy with this red placement because it's my favorite. kind of brings it all to life. And now, once again, we're going to break it up. So you're going to take your 99% alcohol again, and you're going to break it up. Now, because I still had quite a bit of red on this, it's actually going to steal the red from my sponge as well. This is why you must always carry more than one sponge in your kit, especially these types of sponges where you can rip them and they're good for another day. Well, in terms of the other part of the rip, not this part. So I've kind of broken up quite a bit of it. I'm actually going to go in with the back of my sponge, even though it still has a lot of this space here that's going to make it look unrealistic. I'm still gonna go in really quickly and just kind of wipe off some of that color. As long as you're able to do it in a practical way, you won't be able to get those strong edges that you see. And make sure that you do show some of the skin. It's very important for highlighting reasons. And as you see, it is very unrealistic on this side, but this is just a quick demo. So we're going to continue to break this up. Make sure that the color is, very unusual in each part of the burn. Very, very good. So now we're just going to go back in, and I'm going to use all the reds that I have here. These are my favorite parts of doing my burn. All of these reds and blacks are the last part of what we'll be using. So I'm just going to go straight in with each of these reds just by itself. So first this red, and these are what's going to darken it and give it that kind of depth of your skin. Remember about your random placement. And don't be worried about taking off some of the color and showing your real skin. It's what you want. You don't want it to all look completely red. You can wipe it, you can kind of scrape it, dot it. I like to kind of give it a little bit of circles. And now I'm just going to go into my other colors. So these are just kind of like my more orangey colors. I kind of like these ones because it also kind of brings back a little bit of the severity in it. As you see, there's like a big thing of orange. I feel like this really kind of brings out the more severity part of it. Just like a more orangey kind of tone, a little lighter. Just because of the discoloration of the skin. So we will be taking in like a little bit of orange, not yellow, but just orange, and only just a little bit, just to highlight those areas. And it's a wonderful, wonderful color for those highlighted areas. It really is. And I just realized I got two orange splotches here, so we're gonna take that and just going to piece it. Gonna spread it out. We're gonna deconstruct all of these colors, give it a nice piecey look. Very good. As you see, it's kind of coming all together again. giving it a nice piecey look. And now we're going to go in with our darker colors. This is what's going to really contour your arm. So I went in with my darkest reds, and we're just going to make sure that it goes in those areas that you really want to pop, especially in the areas where your skin does show. Make sure that you kind of cradle that area, kind of give it that depth, because that's where, you know, that burn is, right? That's where the irritation is. So really get in there with your darkest colors. And this is kind of like the bloody color as well, right? So you kind of got your two darkest reds. They're kind of brownish as well, which is amazing. And you're just gonna go in and really, really contour those areas. And just because of the dyer cleanup that I'll have to do, I'm not going to be putting a lot on my arm, my hand, as you see, not a lot, but you would be doing your arm as well. I'm sorry, hand. So I'm actually just going to go in again with this, because you really want to create that depth. You want quite a bit of depth in that. As you see, it's actually really given a lot of that depth. You can see all of the piecing. It's actually wonderful. Looks really, really real now. So as you see, it's actually really a really good color. I really like this color so far, which is good. As soon as you really like the color, this is when you can, my apologies for how fake it looks, but as you can see, as long as you're happy with the color, then you can start on your darkest color, which will be your black. So as soon as you start with your black, I mean, you could go back, but this is kind of where this is where it ends. So you're gonna take your black and you're gonna highlight just the same as you did with your darkest red, except this is going to be kind of your charring stage. So you're going to put the char everywhere. It's going to be very random placement, remember that. And just be sure that you make sure that it's piecing and random, because a lot of times people may put the charring in one place and then it doesn't look real anymore. So make sure that you're really sticking it in random places, even around those light parts of your skin that you've taken off the makeup. But just be aware about how much you char, because this is not a fourth degree, this is a third degree burn. And also be sure, if when you're doing your hand, also be sure to char your hand as well. Another good tool that makeup artists will use for charring is cork. We will take a cork and we will burn it, and as soon as it's dried, it turns, you know, into ash, right? It turns into coal, kind of a coal substance. And then you're able to kind of stick it on and it looks a lot darker, looks a lot more real. So really get in there with your random placement. As you see, it's really getting into there. So with the black, it's really important that you have a really, really, really good dark black. Unfortunately, in these alcohol palettes, you really need to work with them in order to get that black out, but it's really good if you do have any type of things such as spray dirt. Spray dirt works very well in this type of burn because it's very, very dark. So as you can see, I've really covered this in a lot of charring. Very random placement. Just kind of gonna get right in there as well. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna piece again. So remember, take your 99% alcohol and just piece even inside that charring that you did before. Get right in there. Wonderful, wonderful. It's really crazy because when makeup artists start their first few times in doing things like in-kit effects, this is not considered special effects. Special effects are actually based on costuming and latex kind of. It's actually molding like somebody's face and making it into a mask that specifically suits them. Not all makeup artists are trained in special effects, and it's often that they have a different team for that. So this is actually considered in-kit effects because there's nothing that's needed in terms of latex, nothing's being fit personally for the body. It's all just used from the makeup artist's kit. So this is considered in-kit. So as you see, I've really pieced it out now. We're actually going to piece it out even more to make it more realistic. So make sure to really get the sides because the sides are what really matters. As you see, I just kind of gave it like a really big blotch right there, which is wonderful. Really make sure that you get those sides because the sides are what can make or break your in-kit effect, especially if you're doing a burn. And you can always go back if you feel like you really messed up and you don't like that, you can always go back. That's the beauty of this type of effect. You can always go back onto it and still give it that color. So, wrong way. So just be sure that you're piecing out the sides of it, the inside. Really be sure that it's really piecey. Luckily, this is only the first layer. So because this was only the first layer, we don't need to worry so much about what it, well, we do need to worry about what it looks like, but this is going to be on the inside of your third degree. So now that we've kind of finished this part of it, we're actually going to go in with our fake blood. This is my favorite part, and I don't always recommend how much blood I use compared to a lot of other people because I love my blood. So for this part, we're actually going to be using just like a little tongue depressor, and we're just gonna stick that in, and we're going to give it the texture. So what you see right now is not what is going to be your finishing touch. Anywhere where you see dark or even the random placement, make sure to put the blood. So we're just going to start by putting the blood on like this. And also make sure to use your your fingers. And just be sure to mostly put it in the spots where you've put the black. This is why the random placement is very important, because you don't want blood everywhere. So just be sure to go all the way up. Also make sure that even in the places where there's not darkness, just be sure to just kind of give it that blood. It's not too visible, which is the good part about it. But it's very important to kind of pat it to really give it that burning texture. It's burnt flesh, right? So it's not going to look too pretty. The blood's not going to be wiped on, right? It's going to be patted on. You see how it kind of changed the texture? By just kind of patting it, even with your fingers, just pat. Pat. Wonderful. And just remember to continue to go in. I'm going to put some all the way up here. And just because there is no color in some spaces, you are still able to put the blood. As I said before, you can still put the blood as long as it looks realistic and it's not like in a random spot like on your face for no reason, right? Make sure that it really flows in. And that's the thing also, is that you always need to make sure, if you are an on-set makeup artist, please be sure, and this is the most important thing, you can't be sitting in the back all day waiting for your client. Because if they do say that at some point your client does get hit, or at some point, you know, there's a battle, right? Always be sure to watch very carefully, because if they do need any types of scratches, you need to be sure where specifically it's going to go. Like, let's say there's a sword fight and then somebody gets scratched. Well, you're not going to be putting the scratch on the left side if they got hit on the right side, right? So always be very, very careful with that. And if you're not too sure, you can always ask somebody. You can always ask continuity. Continuity is always very helpful in that way. And as you see, it is going to be drying, which is fantastic. That's the best part about this blood. It will stay semi-wet, but it will dry slightly, which is wonderful. So because of that, we just need to make sure to work really quickly with it. As you see, it's really gotten really bloody and really gory. If you look very closely, you can see all of that blood. You can see the shine, and that's what we really want, because this is what's going to show that it is irritated, it's fairly new, and it's painful, right? So now that we've kind of gotten to our blood part, I'm actually going to go in. Unfortunately, my hands are very, very, very bloody. So now that we have finished that part, we're actually going to go in with our A and B. So this is our A and B. It's very expensive. Unfortunately, I did not use this sparingly, so there is not quite a lot left. But in terms of this is what's going to create your actual real look to your thing. Unfortunately, all I have right now are these. So we're going to take quite a bit out. That is not quite a bit. So I'm actually just going to take this much out just because I don't have too much left. Perfect. So the one thing about this as well is that it does really quickly set. So this one is jar A. This is B. Be sure that you put them in the right areas. This does set fairly quickly, so you must work really fast with this, and you also need to be sure to mix this well, because it does cure very fast. So the one thing with this is that you need to work really fast with it, so make sure that you mix it really well. You can mix it with your fingers, you can mix it with this, but make sure that the A and B do not go into each other, because if they do, they'll cure inside of each other, and that won't be fun. So be sure to really mix it. You'll feel as soon as it kind of gets a little bit more hard, but you should do it before it gets hard. As you see, it's still in a really good place for movement, and then you're just going to slap it on like this, just like we did with the blood. Don't worry too much about it really doing anything to the makeup, because of course it will, but this is what's going to make it look more real. So as you see, I've slapped it kind of on. It looks pretty good. It's given it that texture, and now we're going to wait for this to cure before we do our second coat. So our second coat is actually what's going to make this the most realistic. Depending on how much third degree that you put on, unfortunately I cannot put on too much because I don't have enough. But what we would often do in this point is that if once it starts to cure at its best, we would take that and we would peel to make it look like peeling skin. So unfortunately with that, I really don't see that we may not be able to do that, but that's what I would normally do, and then we stick blood in it and it looks really, really awesome. But at the moment, we're just waiting for it to cure. It's going to look fantastic once it's cured. And as you see, because I've put it on like this, you can see bleeding has started with the fake blood, which is exactly what we want. Because once we start again, it's going to look even more realistic when we put in the darker colors again, right? So as you see, it's actually gotten quite good. We're still waiting for it to cure. Please be very careful in terms of this product. This product does not do well with latex, so you can't put latex around it. They don't like each other. It's silicone based, so that's the reason that latex cannot be around it. So if you do plan on doing any type of special effects, just keep in mind that latex and silicone really don't do well together. If there's any latex that's near this at all, it will not cure. So it will stay wet, it'll stay sticky, it'll stay soggy, and it'll stay transferable. So you need to be very, very careful and mindful of that. Right now it's still quite a little bit sticky. I can always start on the coat, but I think that I should just wait a little longer just so it won't transfer too much. But at the moment it does feel like it's drying, so that's a good sign. It means nothing around it has irritated it to make it seem like it's, angry in any way. But now that we've kind of gotten this part done, we're actually going to go back in with our usual sponge, and we're going to go in with some dark color again. We're going to go in with black. And we're going to use that black and just lightly dab where the blood was. Just to kind of give that charring effect again. And I can feel on my hand that the third degree is almost done drying. It's still curing, but it's almost done drying. I can still feel it on this part of the hand because I didn't put anything else on this hand. I just put the third degree and then I mixed it. So this is also a really good thing to do if you're still waiting for it to cure, and if you're not too sure how it feels when it's cured. It's best to put it on your skin or put it around you just so you can poke it and test it before you actually start on your real thing, so that then you know, oh, now it's cured because this part is cured, right? So we're still awaiting for this to be cured, but I'm just gonna lightly dab around it some black just for a little bit more charring effect. But so far it looks pretty good. I'm still waiting for it. It looks like it's really drying well. It's not transferring as much anymore, so that's a good sign. I'm still just waiting for this thing to dry properly. So because of that, I'm actually just going to piece out a few things before it dries. So we're going to just piece this thing because I can, and just piece this one. Kind of wipe things away and make it look more realistic, right? You can even just go like this, and that's going to give it that, ripped, you know what I mean? A really good texture right there by just going like this, right? It's almost like you're picking it off, but you're still leaving that texture right here in the hand. So this is looking pretty good. I'm just feeling this and it's just about done. It's a little sticky, but it's not transferring. So that's really, really good. So what I'm just going to be doing now is just around it, just because it's still not ready. We're just going to take your fingernail or take whatever, anything kind of sharpish, and then just kind of rub around it to kind of take out some of that color. Just because then it looks more textured, it looks more real. As you see, I just did that with this one. And just because it still's got an edge to it, we're just gonna scratch it a little. As you see, it's kind of given that really blotchy, scrapey, kind of dried up look. It's really, really good. If your model doesn't really appreciate it, just tell your model to just kind of scratch at the sides of it. You can even show them where. But if anything, it's also good to carry some toothpicks and things like that to kind of help. I just spit. Just to kind of help with it. So that's wonderful. I'm just gonna do that a little bit with the blood as well. Give it that really, really good color. But as you see how it's really given it that texture, especially with my hairs in there, which I really, really don't like, but it really helps as you see the hairs and things like that. It's looking wonderful. It's really given it that kind of depth and kind of realism. So it has dried, and unfortunately I cannot lift it up because it's not thick enough. But often what I would do is I would pull up. I may be able to do it with this one. So we're going to slightly pull up some areas. As you see, this is from the 3rd degree. I've pulled up a little area here, which has given me that kind of depth. It's like my real skin is peeling. That's really good, and that's why I love this. If you have accidentally pulled it completely off, just set it on top, and if it falls, it's like real flesh coming off. I may not have put enough in order to really do that, but often I would take a big chunk off. Oh boy. But it's really good in terms of texturizing. So I see that I can pull like little baby pieces. But if you do have the chance and you do have the money, just be sure that you can like take a bunch of the 3rd degree and pull it back as soon as it's half dried, just to give that like, you know, your skin falling off kind of look. Unfortunately, I could only really get this part here, which is fine. I still have like a little bit of texture I can still pull. I'm pulling up this part here, and some is stuck in my nail. So also be sure to just dump that right back on, because it also still gives it texture. It may not be a flappy part of the skin, but it is texture. So just be sure you can even kind of mat your hairs into that. If your model has hairs, it hurts like a bitch to get off though. But as you see, it's actually really wonderful. I've ripped quite a bit off, and that's fine. That's actually really good. It gives it kind of more of a realistic turn. But as you see, you can see kind of that I've ripped quite a bit of the skin in order to create the kind of burning, painful. Here's another part right here I've ripped, and some more here. Yeah. Really wonderful. As you see right here, I'm pulling. There we go. So just be sure to really pull at that skin. I got some up here too. And just play around with it. It doesn't matter if you have ruined the coloring, because the skin is what's really going to give it that realism, which is amazing. I'm gonna actually pull more of this up. Oh, that's wonderful. Look at what I've done now. I've really pulled that skin back, which is fantastic. This is wonderful for when I stick my blood in again. So once we've actually finished this, we're gonna go back in with our blood. So because of that, I'm just going to grab this again. We're gonna take our tongue depressor, and this time we're really gonna work with our hands. So we're gonna take our fingers, and we're gonna put it inside of where you ripped off that skin. We're really gonna put a lot inside of it, right? And just be sure that it looks, you can still see the skin. Wonderful. You can also just kind of mat it down. There we go. See what I've done? You see that skin there? Wonderful, wonderful. You can still see a lot of the skin that's coming up, and that's also fantastic. You can work around it and make sure that it's really visible, the skin, because you can see that there is quite a bit of skin that's just kind of sitting in random places, and that's also what you want if you can't actually end up pulling some of the skin. It's wonderful to just have that kind of, and as you see right here, I've actually ripped quite a bit of it, so it gives it that kind of, you know, irritation. It looks like the skin has been burning for a while. It looks very texturized. It looks like something you do not want to touch. It looks really painful. But this is exactly what's going to give you, you know, those colors. But as you see, this is what it will look like if you do pull on the skin. Just pull it off. See here. That's what it will look like, and that's what the skin will look like. And then you can colorize it, and you can make it all bloody. That's the best thing about it, I think. But as you see, I've really gotten in there with the blood, and that's my favorite part about everything in Kit Effects. And then we're just gonna scrape and scrape and scrape. And then we've kind of gotten quite a bit done from this. This actually looks really wonderful. It looks really real. It looks quite disgusting. And I love that very much so. It looks quite good. Just gonna kind of get a little closer to the camera here. Really cool. And then the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to be taking our dirt. This is our spray dirt, and the whole reason I use this is because sometimes the black in my kit is not enough to make it look dark. So I actually take it and just kind of spray just kind of those areas that need to be a bit darker. You should never use this if the actor is going to be on set too long, because it does rub off the rest of the makeup. So you need to be very careful in terms of that. But right now, I think that this is really good. It's really darkened those spots on the blood, which is wonderful. It's what we want. Make sure that you just kind of do it in random places as well. And then also, of course, put it on the rest of the body if that's what is needed. But this is exactly what it would more look like. You see how it kind of really darkened those areas and just kind of gave it more depth. So this is what a 3rd degree burn will look like, minus how fake it looks on this side. But this is mainly what it will look like. Very cool, very scary. I wish it was more textured for you guys, but I hope that you guys really experiment with it. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you like, subscribe, and share all of these videos. And I hope to see you guys soon. Thank you.